Dutch Mantell, Scott Steiner still hates Hulk Hogan. That's right. Leave him be. That's how he feels. That's how he feels about it. Leave him be. That's how Scott feels. Scott, you know how Scott is. Scott will tell you about yourself. He will. Story time with Dutch.
Scott Steiner, one of your favourites, talking about one of your least favourites, Hulk Hogan. So this is actually over the course of two different podcasts, one on Talk is Jericho, one on Chris Van Vliet. So this is from Talk is Jericho, this quote, and I've got quite a few for you. As soon as I got turned into a bad guy who's talking about WCW in '98, yeah, I think it was '98, my very next match was against Lex Luger, and I lost, which was so disappointing to me, Steiner revealed. He explained his concern that losing so soon after the turn could damage his credibility. There's always a fear that when they turn you either babyface or heel, there's one way they can bury you. They can say, oh shit, you see, he wasn't any good. And then Steiner later discovered that Hogan had been behind the decision to have him lose. I come to find out that it was Hogan's call. Yeah, that motherfucker. Apparently he only learned the truth with a conversation with another wrestler. The only reason I knew this was because that Sting was in the room and he told me that that was his call. It was like, wait a second, he had creative control, but the creative control wasn't just him. He controlled everything on the show. And a separate quote from Chris Van Vliet about Hulk Hogan. He is a motherfucker. There's no other way I can say it. He's a piece of shit. We did a Nitro in Buffalo, and I knew I had to wrestle per se, but 10 minutes before the show went on air from 10 to 8, sorry.
Who was this again?
This is Scott Steiner again.
Okay.
But 10 minutes before the show went to air at 10 to 8, I didn't know if this was going to happen or not. We had to wait until Hogan got to the building and say, clear it. Yeah, you could do what they had written down. So, I've got more from Steiner. We'll get to him in a minute, more stuff, but did you realise that Hulk Hogan had so much power?
Oh, yeah. When they did the deal with him and Hogan and Nash and Hall, and that was all Hogan's idea. And he ran all that. So, and it was, they ran it into the ground, really. But
wore it out.
Have you ever worked with anybody who had creative control?
Have I ever worked with anybody who had what?
Creative control, or a say in their own creative. So if you're booking somebody, but you have to get their okay first, basically.
No, I never did that. They would throw their suggestions in, and I would listen to them and score how much power they had, whether I paid any attention to it. But I never really. They could say whether they liked it or not, and I said, well, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. So, but usually my way come out the best because they didn't really have good ideas. Now, Hogan has ideas for just himself and maybe Hall and Nash. He has ideas for that. But if you go down the card, you better have ideas for these other guys too. Because Hall and Nash and Hogan, they're not going to make all the shows at all. I mean, they might make one or two, or maybe just TV. So if they're making the TV and they're not making the show, what is drawing in these towns if they're not there? And I don't think anybody in WCW had the nerve to speak up for him, and they didn't know what they were talking about anyway. Because we said, brother, this is the way we did it here, and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And they let him run with it.
That was good.
Whoever said that Hogan was a great booker, he was probably a great okayer. He said, yeah, that sounds good to me, let's do it. And then they go ahead and do it. If you don't have good agents, those matches are going to suck anyway. I don't care who you got in there. If you don't have good agents, and if they can take the match, what you want in the match, and kind of not only let a particular team win, but have them win with some heat on it. So if they hadn't have done this or hadn't have done that, they wouldn't have won. But that's why you've got to have guys who have wrestled before to agent these matches. And a lot of times, you couldn't take an agent and put him with Hogan. Hogan was going to do what he was going to do anyway. because no agent is going to stand up to Hogan because Hogan has the power to just get rid of him. So, and I don't know this. He had a lot of power in WCW, and he had a lot of power in WWF too.
Well, you better say TNA.
So he came to WCW
TNA.
as a big star. Why did he leave WWF?
93?
That's a good question. There was a
93.
fallout between him and Vince McMahon at some point in 93, and I think Vince was also
93.
trying to, I guess, get him to lose. You know, get the next generation ready. Because back in the day, you were 38 years old, you were washed up.
Yep.
And, you know, these days, you're 53 and you're still main eventing. You know, I mean, people look after their bodies a lot more now. But, I mean, honestly, is there anybody... And it breaks my heart to say this because I was such a Hulk Hogan fan, you know. But is there anybody in wrestling history that's been more self-serving than Hogan? I mean, it just seems like he can't get out of his own way. I mean, he's still... I'm trying to think of other examples. Like with WCW, anyone who was his friend could go to him and say and get a match changed. Bryan Adams did it. Said he was going to lose to he was the Giant Big Show at the time, and Hogan said, "Leave it with me, brother." Changed it. There were other times when Hulk Hogan would, you know, just turn up and beat people up for absolutely no reason, or he'd just book an entire show around him to get his heat back when he eventually did lose, or you know, he would take a month off when the NBA playoffs were happening, and then the week that the NBA playoffs stopped, he would return, and then he would tell the TV execs, "Hey, look, I'm back on TV. I am the biggest draw," kind of thing. Master manipulator.
A slip.
No, see now, you need to cut Dutch off. Now the Hogan Warrior WCW match is making sense. Now they're saying, "Oh, nobody's gonna wait. Nobody's gonna look for a rematch 10 years later to get their match, or to get their win back." But then again, while the Warrior in the interview, he felt differently. You know. Okay. Because Warrior, they try to pick at him because they think he runs around town talking like the Ultimate Warrior, which he doesn't. Come on now. And he said, bringing him in just so he can, so Hogan can get his match back. So I'm resetting in the interview. He's talking about that. That shoot interview. He just not shaking my head because I'm thinking about that. Yeah, like bring him in, and yeah. But I was kind of glad that WCW got all the legends: Hogan, Savage, even got Warrior. Who else? They brought in Duggan, Earthquake, a lot of the legends. Yes, he even had Kamala in there, but he got. I heard that poor man got paid crap. So anyway,
Self-serving wrestler.
Would you believe?
Ultimate Warrior. And I can say,
what about the Warrior?
that I have never worked with Ultimate Warrior.
You managed it.
I've heard so much about him.
Well, I found out the bullshit he was doing in TNA. So when I left, I told him a couple of let it be known, like next time I see him, I'm gonna slap the shit out of him. But I didn't see him for like a year, and then I had met his wife at backstage, but when I watched it was in San Jose for WrestleMania.
I reacted to this.
And it was this platinum blonde that was looking at me like kind of thought, oh, there's a stripper, you know. But finally, I kind of remember meeting. But I still wasn't sure, so I went up to her and said, "Are you Hulk Hogan's wife?" You know, and she said, "Yeah." And at that point, he was going to introduce Savage into the Hall of Fame, which was bullshit. So I told her that, and I told her, you know, he was a piece of shit for that whole situation, and I was going to slap the shit out of him. Well, she had asked that, and I grabbed it was nobody heard me. It was very low key. I didn't raise my voice or anything. Grabbed my bags and left. Well,
You're about to be entrusted with top secret information.
See that, but still,
Right
their
now,
ads
you can
annoying.
get Disney Plus and Hulu for just $2.99.
Well, she called Hogan. He came to the airport, and then he called the San Jose Police Department to say I slapped her and I threatened to kill him. Well, you know, this terroristic threats and aggravated assault. You know, so I got a call from the San Jose Police Department. I mean, it was on TMZ and stuff, and luckily it happened at the airport because there were so many cameras. Otherwise, it would have been her and him against me.
Right.
So it would have been, you know, a tough case in court. But since it was on camera, you know, I told you, don't bother me anymore. It's on camera. You know, and they stopped.
No, I read that story. She went to the airport that night or the next morning?
No, they actually bumped into each other at the airport.
Oh, at the airport.
Yeah.
I see. And they ran into each other. So that was the next morning. Well, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but, and I've heard a similar story about that. And I think Scott told me that, but he doesn't like Hogan at all. So.
What was he doing? What was he doing to Savage? I know you didn't really speak to Savage much sort of beyond the 90s, but
Savage, they had a long, drawn out.
Well, Savage didn't care for him either.
You know, a grudge from a distance. I think it involved Liz. Was that her name, Liz?
yeah, Elizabeth, yeah.
Yeah.
Elizabeth. It involved her and Hogan and Randy. And I love Randy, but he thought he should be in the spot that Hogan was in, and Hogan knew that he wanted it. So whenever Hogan was around Vince, he was always downgrading Randy. Randy'd hear about it, and then it just worked up to a peak to where Randy was.
And Savage wasn't garbage. Though. Come on, now Savage was good.
To kill him or not,
Savage
but
wasn't
he wanted to
garbage.
hurt him. He really did. So,
Did you ever hear the story? I've got a story for you. So Hulk Hogan claimed this just before Randy died. Was that Hogan bumped into Randy at the doctor's office, and then in that office they squashed all their bad feelings between each other, etc., etc. And then a few days later, Randy died of a heart attack. Do you believe this? Because there's a lot of people out there saying, isn't that just a bit convenient that all of a sudden you're baby-facing yourself and nobody else can prove one way or another that meeting actually happened?
I never heard that.
You've heard the doctor's office story, though, or not?
I've heard something about a doctor's office,
You've been in an
but I
office.
don't know. But see, if sometimes you hear a story, I don't put that much emphasis on it, or even listen to it that much. But I knew they didn't like each other, and I heard that they did kind of put it behind them, and they went their happy ways.
Savage said in an interview
How did Randy die?
15,
Didn't he have a
16
heart attack
years
just
ago.
driving down the road?
Yeah, he did.
And he hit a tree?
Yeah, I don't think it was the force of the impact, though. I think it was the heart attack that finished him off.
Yeah, it's a heart attack that killed him. Oh, yeah. But,
Yeah, Savage said
and
he
see,
didn't like him
things
on
can
the
happen like that to anybody at any time.
Yeah, Savage. That interview years and years and years ago. That was probably the early 2000s. Seen that too. He said he never been a friend. He's like he said the TV is just for the TV. So yeah, so he might have been all right on the TV, but he said all that. All right, brother. Yeah, that's for the TV. He ain't like no Sam. I mean no Hogan. Boy. Yeah, cause you be believing that. Same thing with like a lot of the singing groups or the rap groups. You be finding out now, 10, 20 years later. Oh, I never liked so and so. I never liked his ass. And I was like, damn, I thought they was buddies. They ain't no damn buddy. They say, I'm not your fucking buddy. So yeah, it's not. That's the thing. It's not what it looks like. You're thinking that they're friends, and you hear all these interviews 10, 15 years later, like, oh, I thought that they was cool. It's like, no, they hated each other. I'm like, well, I'll be damned. It's crazy business.